for those of you who were watching over at Status Coup, I was able to really get into this conversation regarding Mr. Brad Whitford and his wonderful thought process about what actually is important regarding how you get voters to vote Democrat in the election. Doesn't seem that he is very well versed in how you convince people to do that. And Big Dumb Animal, we certainly will not object to that. If you do want to give a super chat, that's certainly appreciated. But that should only be in cases where we have an extremely large audience and comments are coming in full throttle, and you want to make sure yours gets noticed. But highly recommend going over to Cash App or over to Patreon if you want to support our efforts. But as I was saying, and remember to smash that like button and get this out there to as many people as you can. You know, Bradley Whitford, as we have said many times already, is sort of representative of just how far the Democratic Party has actually sunk in many ways in terms of who they actually get out there to support their cause. Now, in the case of Brad Whitford, he is somebody who, for one reason or another, is not only going to be the guest speaker at this upcoming Dem Blue Gala that is taking place here at the Fontainebleau in Florida. There was an important element of the story that I didn't get a chance to get into that would certainly appreciate your guys' feedback, because the one thing that is really important here to remember is that not only are they having a, you know, sort of like a Deborah Messing, you know, who I'm blanking on the name at the moment, Neera Tanden, Pod Save America, you know, those guys. The ones who constantly want to tell you how great the Democrats are not even, you know, we're getting to the point now where they're not even trying to convince you that the Democrats are any good. What they're actually trying to do is tell you that, yeah, we know we suck, but those guys suck worse, so make sure you support us. And so Mr. Whitford, in his infinite wisdom, wants you to believe that it is impossible for me not to express my rage today at so many progressives who couldn't get excited or didn't show up in 2016. You were blind to the fundamental rights that were at stake. The most vulnerable citizens will pay the price of your effing privilege. Vote. I don't know, but that doesn't really seem to be a very convincing way to get people to support your cause. In fact, I think it's a very ludicrous way to try to get people over to your side. But here's the part of the story that isn't being talked about enough. The Democratic Party has a real identity crisis problem when they're being funded by Silicon Valley and Wall Street, claiming to be the party of working people, which they're not. So the problem they now have here in Florida is that they want to raise money to try to support candidates. So please tell me why, out of all the places, and keep in mind, this is the Dem Blue Gala for the entire state of Florida. This is not like, you know, they're putting it in Orlando, which only makes sense from a traveling perspective for most people in the state. But no, let's put it at the Fontainebleau in Miami. I mean, if that doesn't scream privilege or the disconnect at the highest level, I don't know what does. That is a serious identity problem that the party is going to have to rectify, which they're already having a hard enough time doing. There are 67 counties in the state of Florida. Of the 67, about 7 or 8 of them are blue. That's it. And so the argument being, we have to put this in a place where we have to be able to attract enough support. The Fontainebleau, to do an event like this, is going to cost an arm and a leg. So just spitballing here, but if you're really concerned about improving the infrastructure of the party, wouldn't it make sense to potentially do this in a part of the state that could really use the influx of the money that could be brought into a hotel that can host people for a few days? There's plenty of places to choose from. Hell, you could do it in Tallahassee for all I care. You could do it in Gainesville. You could do it in Jacksonville. You could do it in Daytona. You could do it in Cape Canaveral. You could do it in Ocala. You could do it in Fort Myers. But no, let's do it in Miami. And let's not only do it in Miami, Let's do it in a place that basically no one can afford to go to. Chris Garrett has it right on the money. Who are they pandering to? Well, on the one hand, they are at least being objectively honest that they really do not care about optics at this point. They're just going right for the money. And their assumption is that they're going to get paid. But as we often like to say, one of the biggest problems that exists in politics today, and it's worse on the Democratic side than on the Republican side, is the consultant industrial complex. That is a huge, huge problem. The consultant industrial complex is one of the biggest problems that exists. And on the Democratic side, it's worse because on the Democratic side, you don't actually have to win elections. On the GOP side, you have to win. You want to keep getting hired as a consultant and getting paid a lot of money? You have to, show your work. On the Democratic side, that doesn't even come into the equation. Which is why I think most of us know that the reason it exists in the first place is the preponderance of what the system represents. It's not about whether you win or lose, it's about whether you get paid. Because that's what people care about. I know people on campaigns as we speak right now that they're only there to get a paycheck. They're not there to win. They don't even care if they win. And they know that they can't win. But hey, if they're going to pay, I'm going to take it. I don't necessarily blame them. But I think we have to be very honest about what this is all about. It was an issue enough as it was, going from President Biden to Congressman Julian Castro, who, for those of you who may or may not know, Julian and Joaquin Castro, the Castro brothers of San Antonio, they law clerked with Jen. They know each other. They were in the same office in San Antonio. And he became, the noted political figure, and he was the guest speaker. And this was 2018. I want to say it was 2018. And in 2019, we got Chris Coons, senator from Delaware, good friend of President Biden. And of course, in 2020, we didn't have it because of the pandemic. 2021 as well, we didn't have it. But now, as we come full circle here in 2023, Brad Whitford is our keynote speaker in a state with 30 electoral votes. And they are making a big deal about this guy speaking here. I would have had issue with it, making it seem like it was a big deal to begin with, having him as the guest speaker, like that was what was going to move the needle. The issue I have is what he said, and it seemed like the Democratic Party in this state was applauding what he was saying. You can't win an election, especially at the state level, without the progressive left. And yet they will constantly continue to crap all over them, even though they know it's a losing strategy, and they go right along with it. I didn't see one person of note. Jen did. But, one person of note to say, Mr. Whitford, this is not helping. This is hurting. And you better believe that there is nobody who is going to show up at that gala that is going to say those words to him. They should. I'm not going to be there. I have, a career that takes priority, and I will be out of town. But if I was there, I don't know how I wouldn't say something. It's a bad look. It's a bad look, and it's not doing anybody any favors. And this state continues to go redder and redder by the day, and that allows for even greater electoral takeover in other parts of the country. This state will not be competitive next year. It will not be close in any way, and it's going to be ugly. And in many ways, yes, it starts with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but there are many reasons as to why we have landed in this spot, and it could have been prevented. But people want to get paid, and they don't care who they have to run over to get paid. That's why I always say, there's nothing wrong with being in politics. It can be very rewarding in many ways because you're fighting for causes that you really believe in. but you want to avoid the drama at all costs if you can. But let me teach each and every one of you a key lesson here when it comes to politics. Don't ever, ever trust anybody in politics, no matter where they stand, no matter what issues they claim to support. If their livelihood is dependent on the system, do not trust them.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.